the late 80s, the arcades were booming again with players and new games coming regularly, competing for the lucrative and resurgent gaming industry. While the majority were adventure action games or shooters, a new type of video games was making its debut with the release of the 1987 Street Fighter game. Developed by Capcom, this simple and often underrated game led to the flourishing of the fighting games genre. Street Fighter was spearheaded and produced by young Takashi Nishiyama and Hiroshi Matsumoto. Nishiyama was not new to the fighting and action games, as he worked on the 1984 Kung Fu Master game by Irem, a game that many see as the true first fighting game. Unlike traditional action games, Street Fighter allowed players to fight one enemy at a time in a 2-round style combat. The addition of the player versus mode was the first step towards the competitive scene we know today. Following the modest success of Street Fighter, Takashi Nishiyama left Capcom and joined a new and emerging software and hardware developer, SNK, previously known as the Shin Nihon Kikaku. SNK was not new to gaming. The company have made some very successful arcade games in late 70s and early 80s, like Vanguard and Ikari Warriors. And after making profits porting their old games to the then very popular NES system, the company would decide to enter the home and hardware market with a bang as they introduced their new hardware in 1990 known as the NeoGeo. The NeoGeo was designed as both an arcade system in the form of the NeoGeo MVS, as well as a home console in the form of the NeoGeo AES. Both hardware used the same components, offering for the first time the ability to have arcade-level graphics and gameplay at home. With its brand new system now released in the arcades, SNK saw potential in the new 1 vs 1 fighting genre, and were willing to bet on this new type of games that they greenlit a number of projects that would use the idea of versus fighting and even try to evolve it further. Seeing how Nishiyama already proved his skill in this emerging type of games, SNK gave Takashi the green light to work on what he envisioned as the spiritual successor to Street Fighter, and the next step for fighting games, Garou Densetsu, or as we know it in the West, Fatal Fury. Contrary to what many believe, Fatal Fury was being developed at the same time as Street Fighter II at Capcom. In early development, the game's original title was Real Bout, a title that will be used in some of the sequels of the franchise. Wanting to differentiate itself from its competitor Capcom, SNK would push for a detailed, story-driven franchise to let their customers invest in the game's lore and setting. Fatal Fury gave players the ability to select from 3 distinct characters: Terry Bogard, the game's protagonist, his brother Andy, and their best friend Joe Higashi. Each of these characters come with their unique playstyle and special moves. And speaking of moves, and unlike the original Street Fighter, doing these special attacks was made easy, with the intention of letting players throw fireballs, rising tackles, and hurricane uppers almost at will. The gameplay of Fatal Fury followed the typical formula of Street Fighter, as it allowed the player to compete against his opponent in best 2 out of 3 round matches. The play controls consist of an 8-directional joystick and 3 attack buttons: A, B, and C. A for punches, B for kicks, and C to throw the opponent. As in the original Street Fighter, each of these playable characters have special techniques that are performed by inputting specific commands and combinations with the joystick and buttons. While as previously mentioned, these maneuvers were easier to pull compared to the first Street Fighter game, the input methods for the special moves were shown to the player during the course of the game, specifically after every bonus round, as opposed to being given in an instruction card on the game's cabinet. Speaking of bonus rounds, after a number of matches, the player enters a mini-game mode called the bonus round, where he or she will need to win an arm wrestling contest against a machine. The player will need to press the A and B buttons as fast as they can in order to win the contest. The biggest addition and new aspect that Fatal Fury introduced to the genre was the inclusion of a two-lane fighting system. The player can jump from one lane to another to avoid projectile attacks or knock their opponents to the other plane. This new mechanic was unheard of and would become the staple of the series, for better or worse. Multiplayer mode was a highlight in the first Street Fighter game, allowing two players to test their skills against each other. For Fatal Fury, Nishiyama decided to spice things up. When a second player joins during the middle of a fight, instead of postponing the current battle for a match between the two players, the game will make both players team up against the current CPU opponent in a 2-on-1 match before their battle takes place. While the game offered only 3 characters to choose from, playing the arcade mode will pit you against 7 unplayable warriors. Richard Meyer, a capoeira master originally from Brazil, Richard makes his daily living in Southtown as the manager of the restaurant known as Pau Pau Cafe. He competes in the King of Fighters tournament in order to make his capoeira style known to the world. Michael Max, a pro boxer who was once considered a strong contender for the title of worldwide heavyweight champion. However, he left the boxing circuit to seek real combat and participate in the King of Fighters tournament, feeling that professional boxing was a mere sport protected by rules. Duck King, a dancer and fighter that possesses incredible talent when it comes to brawling and street dancing. Duck King once challenged Terry Bogard to a street fight and lost. He trained himself in order to surpass Terry and hopes to do so at the King of Fighters tournament. Duck uses a unique fighting style which includes a rhythmical dance-like movements and attacks. Tung Fu Ru, an elderly martial arts master from China who developed his own fighting style based on Baiji Quan, known as the Holy Fist of 8 Ways, the Hakyoku Seiken. In the past, he trained Terry and Andy's adoptive father Jeff Bogard and his nemesis Geese Howard. Tung helped raise the Bogard brothers for a while after Jeff was killed by Geese and now participates in the King of Fighters tournament with the objective to defeat Geese. He can change his body size and draw great power using a deadly secret technique known only to himself. Hua Jai, the first of 3 opponents the player faces before the final match against Geese Howard, a former Muay Thai champion once nicknamed the Hero of Muay Thai. Jai once fought against Joe Higashi in the past and lost, causing him to lose his title. Seeking to defeat Joe, he became a more reckless and dangerous fighter. After being banned from competing in the Muay Thai circuit, his brutal talent was noted by Geese Howard, who hired him to serve as one of his bodyguards and as a participant in the King of Fighters tournament. His special technique, the Dragon Kick, was developed to compete with Joe's Tiger Kick. He also gains additional strength by drinking a sort of super drink, which is thrown at him by one of Geese's men. Raiden, the second of the final 4 computer-controlled opponents in the single-player mode. Raiden was once a popular wrestler until he was betrayed by his tag partner during a match. This incident transformed him completely. Not satisfied with venting his frustration in the ring, he enters the King of Fighters tournament as a masked fighter, acting as one of Geese's bodyguards. Billy Khan, a British orphan who grew up in the street. Billy moved to Southtown and thanks to his street fight abilities, quickly caught the eye of Geese Howard, who made him his right-hand man. He uses a Sunset Sukon as a weapon. Once all of these fighters are defeated, the player will have to face the powerful Geese Howard himself in an outstanding setting that goes hand in hand with the game's story. Story-wise, the game takes place in the fictional city of Southtown, USA. Terry and his younger brother Andy were orphans who grew up in the streets of Southtown. Their rough childhood will be left behind when they meet Jeff Bogard, a martial artist who decides to adopt the young siblings. Not only did Jeff Bogard give his new sons his name, love, and a warm home, he also taught them the art of Hakyoku Seiken, which literally translates to 8 extreme holy fists, a formidable martial arts style that Jeff learned from the legendary master Tang Fu. Jeff trained with Master Tang for years alongside another student, Geese Howard. Unlike the calm-natured and compassionate Jeff, Geese had ulterior motives, anger issues, and evil intent, which was the reason why Tang Fu decided to only show the last technique of the Hakyoku Seiken to Jeff, an act that made Geese so jealous that the latter decided to kill Jeff. It would take years before Geese would act on his hatred to Jeff, but when he did so, he did in front of the eyes of the young Bogard brothers. After finally finding a home and a loving father, Terry and Andy are now orphans again, just moments after witnessing the gruesome death of their adoptive father. Vowing to have their revenge against Geese, Terry and Andy decide to each take on a different path of training and hard work and to come back to Southtown in 10 years to take on the rising crime lord, Geese. Terry finds the Hakyoku Seiken master Tang Fu and spent 10 years training and traveling from place to place. While Andy moved to Japan and learned the art of Kenpoken from another legendary master, Hanzo Shiranui. 10 years have passed, and the two brothers, along with Andy's new friend, the Muay Thai champion Joe Higashi, are back to Southtown just in time for Geese to announce a new martial arts tournament, the King of Fighters. The trio decide to enter the competition in hopes of reaching the finals and defeating Geese once and for all. To put more emphasis on the story, SNK decided to publish a free mini-comic explaining the lore of the game. The comic was drawn by famed artist Shinkiro. This same type of promotional material would also be used for SNK's other fighting game series Ryoko no Ken, also known as Art of Fighting. Fatal Fury was released in the arcades on November 1991, 8 months after the release of the behemoth Street Fighter II. Even though not offering many playable characters as its competitor, Fatal Fury still received mainly positive reviews as the first fighting game for the brand new Neo Geo gaming arcade and home system. According to Japan's Game Machine magazine, by January 1992, Fatal Fury was considered the third most successful arcade unit of the year. The game was also met with positive reviews when it reached the US in 1992. As it received 5 out of 5 score from GamePro. The main reason for the game's massive success was how the players resonated with the characters' deep stories and serious personalities. The first Fatal Fury game would receive a couple of ports outside of the Neo Geo family in the form of a Super Nintendo version, a Genesis version, and even a Sharp X68000 port. The Super Nintendo version of Fatal Fury was published by Takara, a toy company turned game publisher and one that would go on to port multiple SNK titles for the home market. Developed by Nova, Fatal Fury on the Super NES was published in Japan in 1992 and in North America during the following year. This version discards the 2-lane system in favor of a more conventional 1-lane plane. the 2-on-1 battles are gone, and the arm wrestling bonus rounds are replaced by new bonus rounds involving the main character punching flying tires. In the game's versus mode, all of the CPU-controlled characters are playable, but only on the second player's side. Players also could pick the same main character, which was not possible in the arcade version. The Mega Drive and Genesis versions were released in 1993, published by Sega in Japan and by Takara in North America. This version removes the characters of Hwajai and Billy Khan from the roster, having them only appear as background cameos. Instead, the player faces against the other two main characters during the course of the single-player mode. This version allowed both players to play as the CPU-controlled characters in the game's versus mode, and even Geese Howard was playable via cheat code. A Sharp X 68000 version was produced by Magical Company and was released in Japan only on May 1993. This version was almost an identical copy to the Neo Geo Fatal Fury. As a way to cross-promote its new fighting game, SNK teamed up with Fuji TV to produce a TV special based on the story of Fatal Fury. This 45 minutes long anime would use the talent of famed director, artist, and producer Masami Obari. Masami-san was in charge of designing the characters for the anime as well as plotting the story for the movie. Released in 1993 on Fuji TV, the anime was a modest success and did help make Terry a memorable character in the minds of its targeted audience. The anime followed the story of the game almost perfectly, as SNK was strictly involved in the scripting process and wanted this first TV experience to be as close to canon as possible. All the characters from the first game made an appearance in the anime, with some restricted as cameos. A brand new character, Lily Maguire, was created for the TV special to serve as Terry's love interest. Masami Obari's original plan was to have Lily be Billy Khan's sister. However, after multiple deliberations, SNK decided to not have Lily as Billy's sister in the anime. Coincidentally enough, Billy Khan would later get a sister in the game series that also happened to have her name be Lily. While the Fatal Fury series would later get a number of manga adaptations, the first game would only see a very loose manga version months after the game's release in the form of the obscure and odd Bonbon Garu, written and illustrated by Yuji Hasui. Although his comics only follow the first 3 games, the author's goal for the manga from the get-go was that anything is possible, with little continuity made with the series' original story. As such, the manga have gained a cult status with the Japanese fandom for its irrational script and nonsensical plot. With the successful release of the first game, the Garu Densetsu series was destined for bigger, better, and more known sequels, as Fatal Fury King of Fighters will prove to be the beginning of SNK's fighting genre's dominance. Next, we will look at how SNK took all the learned lessons from the first game, as well as the success of Street Fighter 2, to bring the fans bigger and better sequels. Until then, please consider becoming a patron, helping the channel, and also getting exclusive early access to all of the channel videos